Let's first go to Fox News Sunday anchor Chris Wallace on this. And Chris, this has been out for about 30 minutes. Your first thoughts as you look at this?
Well, I think there are some parts of it that are damaging to the FBI and to the Trump investigation, raise questions about it. And there are some aspects of it that are striking to me in terms of what it leaves out, what it omits. One other point that I think is important to make right at the start is that you heard from Adam Schiff and some of the congressional Democrats how damaging this memo was to national security, that basically it gave up sources and methods. There's none of that in here. I've read multiple times. I've read these three, and it's not even 3.5. It's about 3 1/3 pages. There's nothing in there that is in any way endangers national security, may endanger the reputation of the FBI and some of its senior officials. It does what we had been led to believe it does, raise questions about the use of the Russia dossier to get a warrant to surveil, to monitor Carter Page, a voluntary foreign policy advisor to the Trump campaign in October of 2016, and also the fact that Christopher Steele, the author of the dossier, which was opposition research from the Democrats, had apparently been circulating information to other people like Yahoo News, and the FBI, in seeking the warrant, used the Yahoo News information, which was really getting it from Christopher Steele, the author of the dossier. So it was coming through over the transom in several ways. Perhaps the most damaging statement in the dossier is from this last sentence. Furthermore, Deputy Director McCabe, that's Andrew McCabe, who was just removed from the FBI in the last week. Furthermore, Deputy Director McCabe testified before the committee in December 2017 that no surveillance warrant, one assumes against Carter Page, would have been sought from the Foreign Intelligence Security Court, Surveillance Court, without the Steele dossier information. Now, they don't have a quote there. They just say, as a fact, that McCabe says there never would have been a warrant to wiretap Carter Page without the Steele dossier. I'd be very curious to see that testimony and to see it for myself. What doesn't it have? It implies
well, before we get
Carter...
to that, Chris, can I just step in? Because I want to step back, because there are a lot of questions about this you know, the FISA court has so much power, and it's so secretive, and it is so important in this country. And Catherine Herridge has been reporting on just the processes that we go through to make sure that Americans are protected and surveilling us. So to get to the point where this court would say, yes, you can go surveil Carter Page, if in fact there was something corrupt about the process, if there were important things that were left out, or if the British spy Christopher Steele's collection of documents was corrupt, and we know that it was problematic because he was fired, does that then impugn the very FISA warrant that was obtained? Was it obtained illegally?
Well, it depends. Certainly, the use of the dossier seems to have been improper, but we don't know how big a role that played in the FISA warrant, which gets back to that McCabe statement, again, without any quotation, just a summation by the Republicans that they couldn't have gotten the warrant without it. This is what I wanted to talk about. A FISA warrant is usually dozens of pages. It can be 30 pages, 40, 100 pages. So the idea that the only evidence in the FISA warrant was the dossier seems highly unlikely. There's another point that I think is being overlooked here. Carter Page was not just some innocent babe in the woods who was being attacked by the FBI. In 2013, and this hasn't been mentioned at all, in 2013, Russian intelligence agents tried to recruit Carter Page as an agent for the Russians in this country. In 2014, Carter Page, this is years before Donald Trump ran for president, right. Carter Page was the subject of a separate FISA warrant. So Carter Page has a long history here, and it seems unlikely.
That's interesting.
Not to say that the dossier may have played a role, and to the degree it played a role, that is very troubling and may be corrupt. But it's very unlikely that that was the only evidence that was brought. Carter Page had a long history, and the FBI had them on his radar for questionable relations with the Russians for 4 or 5 years.
And Chris, all of that being the fact, what does it have to do with the Trump campaign? And that is such a basic question, but it's important. And those FISA documents would have been separate. They might have been part of a pool of where they look at this guy and they say, well, we've looked at him before. But it's my understanding that when they look to surveil, it's an independent request that's coming in based on those current conditions and information that they know at the time. So my big question is, did they ask all the proper questions? This memo would indicate that they didn't know where the money had come from to pay for that anti-Trump dossier. There were some things that perhaps the FISA court was not aware of. And so I use the word corrupt. You can just use the word, conflicting. You can say incomplete, whatever it is. But if that FISA warrant were not properly processed, does that then mean that the rest of the case that was built on this particular one needs a second look or maybe thrown out? What do you think?
No, and this is precisely my point. There are certainly questions. Two things can be true at the same time, that there's a legitimate investigation of the president and that the FISA warrant on Carter Page was improperly obtained. Remember, the Trump investigation didn't start with the Carter Page warrant in October of 2016. It started after George Papadopoulos, who was another foreign policy advisor to Donald Trump, had talked to an Australian ambassador, a diplomat, and that started in July of 2016, months before the Carter Page warrant was ever obtained.
But wasn't the dossier part of that conversation too?
Pardon?
Go ahead. I'll bring up the dossier after you're done. Forgive me.
Well, in fact, what it says here in this memo is it says that the Papadopoulos information triggered the opening of an FBI counterintelligence investigation by late 2016. There is no evidence of any cooperation or conspiracy between Page and Papadopoulos. Yes, that indicates that that Page may not have been part of what Papadopoulos was talking about, and that warrant might not be correct. But it also indicates that the information that Papadopoulos gave had nothing to do with Carter Page.
What else stands out to you in this document?
This gets back to the question. One of the things that stands out to me is it is 3 1/3 pages long and seems very narrowly written to make the worst case on one specific thing. It may well be completely accurate. One of the things that really stands out to me is the role of Bruce Orr, who was an assistant attorney general whose wife was working for the same company that had employed the Christopher Steele. And that certainly is very troubling, and he was continuing to pass information on to the FBI during this whole thing. But one of the things that strikes me is that this is in no way, shape, or form is a complete document. It's a very narrowly tailored memo about one specific incident, may be true, may be damaging, but I think it's limited in what it tells you about the entire investigation.
Yeah, that point that you're bringing out of Bruce Orr at the DOJ, though, and his already knowing how anti-Trump the British spy who put together this anti-Trump dossier was, this Christopher Steele, and then still continuing to let him, if you will, color the investigation, makes me also ask for the DOJ part of this, and I take it back to that dossier, was there a chill put on any part of the investigation such that it would have been colored by Bruce Orr? Was there, I'm curious about that, because if he knew that there was somebody who was against the candidate who's handing him a lot of information, what does that tell us? And I know he's been demoted. Why is he still at the Justice Department?
Well, there's no question. I'm just looking over this again. That before and after Steele was terminated as a source because they no longer saw him as reliable, he maintained contact with DOJ via this associate Deputy Attorney General Bruce Orr. And that back in 2016, Steele had admitted to Orr his feelings against Trump, then candidate Trump, quote, was desperate that Donald Trump not get elected and was passionate about him not being president, and that all of this information that Steele had given to Orr, none of that was in the FISA document. Again, the point I'm trying to make is the FISA document can have a lot of holes in it. It doesn't mean that the entire document has a hole in it, and it doesn't necessarily mean we're just going to have to wait and see whether the entire Trump investigation has holes in it.
Well, I can tell you one thing. you're going to try to get to the bottom of this all the way till Sunday, and that's when we'll see you again for Fox News Sunday. Chris Wallace, thank you for being here to help me break it down and take all of my peppered questions.
No, I enjoy it. And let me just quickly say, we're going to have two members on at the same time of the House Intelligence Committee, one Republican, one Democrat.
That's
we're going to go through all of these things and try to get them, because we haven't gotten the two memos together. Let's get two members together and go through it with them.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, because the Democrats say theirs is some 10 pages long. Will theirs be redacted? Is it going through the process? Oh, I'll be tuned in with popcorn. Thank you.